Thank you for your patience. So we'll go ahead and get started. We'll start with opening prayers, Om Sahana Bhavatu, then Vakraturna Mahakaya, Saraswati Namastubhyam, and Guru Brahma, Guru Vishnu. Then we will chant again verse number 1 of Sadhana Panchakam. We'll do lead and repeat style one round, and then we'll chant it again together. So we'll get a couple more practice with this. Then we'll get into the topic. I have one question from last class. We ended with Prayaschitta Karmas. Is that correct? Yes, no? Yes, right? Okay. So we'll pick up the idea from there and move forward. So with that. Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahano Bhunaktu Saha Viryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Vakratunda Mahakaya Surya Koti Samaprabha Nirvignam Kuru Me Deva Sarva Karyeshu Sarvada. Saraswati Namastubhyam Varade Kamarupini Vidyarambham Karishyami Siddhir Bhavatu Me Sada. Guru Brahma Guru Vishnu Guru Devo Maheshwaraha Gurureva Param Brahma Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. So now for verse number 1, please repeat after me. Vedo nityam adhiyatam taduditam karma svanushthiyatam tene shasya vidhiyatam apachitihi kamye matistyajyatam papogaf paridhuyatam bhavasukhe doshonusandhiyatam Atmecha vyavasiyatam Nijagrahat Turnam vinirgamyatam. So now together. Vedo nityam adhiyatam tadudidam karma svanushthiyatam tene shasya vidhiyatam apachitihi kamye matistyajyatam papogaf paridhuyatam bhavasukhe doshonusandhiyatam atmecha vyavasiyatam nijagrahat turnam vinirgamyatam. So we had seen that after having studied the Vedas well, in Grahastha Ashrama, we take up doing or performance of action to perfection. That we take what we've learned, apply it really well, and practice it in our day-to-day life. And that includes 4 types of karmas. Nitya karma, Naimitika karma, or together they're called as Niyata karmas. These are things that we have to do no matter where we are in life. This makes up 99% of what we need to do. Naimitika karma is those special occasions. Either it can be good or bad or not as joyful, I guess. That when those special circumstances come up, we take up a different set of duties that are not part of our normal routine, but they are duties anyways, and we must perform them well. And then there are the other things that we do that we have to manage. And those reflect the 2 lines that came afterwards, kamye matistyajyatam and papogaf paridhuyatam. that when it comes to my kamas and desires, I need to work on reducing them so that I may reach that desirelessness state. But until I reach then, I have to manage it in certain ways. So may I perform those kamas or fulfill them in such a way that I'm able to outgrow them. The example we took last time was management of wealth. If I have an attachment to wealth and I have an addiction to it, I obsess over it, or I want to gather more and more, enough that I may dip into having a little bit of greed, then may I take the vasana of wealth and attachment and utilize it in such a way that I outgrow it. Therefore, practices like charity or rinas or the grahastha ashrama being the foundation of supporting the other ashramas, they have a common pattern, does it not? Charity is out of my choosing. Rinas is those that I must give to, and those rinas or debts come in the form of those that I must support. So by giving money out of my own volition, what am I subtly doing? Breaking down this bhava of attachment. I am giving, therefore I'm not taking. I am giving, therefore I'm not hoarding. I am giving, therefore I am weakening my attachment to wealth. So let me earn well. Let me use, when I have kama and desire, there's a lot of energy and enthusiasm that comes with it. Let me make the most of it. Let me earn well, work hard, get creative, use my intellect, be as tenacious in earning wealth. Let it be there. Let it flourish. But once I have it, what am I going to do with it? Is it for my selfish desires that I'm going to constantly keep fulfilling? That will keep me bound. But if I give in all different forms for different motivations, I am undoing that attachment. So eventually, whether I have wealth or whether I don't have wealth, I am samatvam and balanced. Kamye matistyajatam. May I outgrow my kamas through the application of dharma. Then when it comes to mistakes I've made along the way, maybe I've succumbed to kama too much. Maybe I'm too bound by it and I've crossed others. I have done things that have harmed others. I've done things that have caused disaster for society or myself, whatever may be that. Let me start acknowledging them, facing them, and atoning for what I've done. Because until and unless those mistakes are not corrected, they are underlying scars that can erupt at any time. Because the root cause of that papa has not been addressed. So looking at the mistakes I've made comes to recognize usually what the ego was doing. It was the ego that had an attachment to something, and I was careless about dharma, and therefore I crossed it. So with that, prayaschitta karma is taken up as a sincere effort to correct myself, an intelligent self-correction. That I have 3 basic principles in any prayaschitta karma that I take up. May I truly and sincerely regret what I've done. See it as a mistake, understand why it's a mistake, and truly believe that this was something I shouldn't have done. Then I take up an appropriate tapas that corresponds to the mistake I've made. If I am too greedy and that hoarding tendency was there, charity is considered as one of those prayaschitta karmas as well. Because I stole, may I put extra effort to give back. Again, to loosen up the addiction of that ego. If I thought I had pride, I'm the greatest intellect around in my company, and therefore my audacity took front stage, then let me find ways to practice humility. Let me take up the tapas of serving others, complimenting others, put myself down so that I may experience what it's like to be humble. So a certain tapas, a special practice that I wouldn't have normally done, but it is specifically designed to address the mistake I've made. Finally, the last step is, I will never do this again. When that solid conviction is there, backed up by the willpower saying, I will never do this, then I know I have truly learned from this. So, through addressing, managing kama vasanas and purifying and atoning for the through the prayaschitta karma, what I am left with is with the purity of mind that is now available to use for analysis. A mind that has been calmed down, that is now available to use. I'll come back to the example I gave in assembly. The exam scenario is a really good one to think about again. I can lose access to my own intellect when I'm constantly disturbed. So disturbance is the issue. What is the source of disturbance then? Ego and egocentric desires. And the constant fussing. I said the attachments is the next step or manifestation of the ego. So attachments fall under likes and dislikes. If I don't get what I want and I get what I don't want, both upset me. So fussing and rearranging the world and having an ego, having anger, greed, or all of the other expression, I think in chapter 13, one of those chapters in the very beginning, in 3 verses, has a list of values and asuric tendencies within us. Daivi Asuric Sampati is the title of that chapter. We will see all of the spectrum of emotions that we go through when we are challenging our likes and dislikes. Those are the causes and manifestations of agitation. So whenever the Shastras say, have a pure mind, have a pure mind, pure of what? Purified from these agitations. Therefore, when I'm able to deal with it, manage it through karma yoga, I am left with a mind that is calm. And just like in that test, in the present moment, which is a gift, my mind is available to actually apply and consciously do the best I can in this present moment. I'm not distracted by the past. I'm not distracted by the future. I'm right here, right where my hands are. Now, once that mind is accessible and under control, what do we do with it? Do I go back into all of the kama and the fussing and all the turmoils of life? I've just fixed all of that. I have now energy and a powerful tool in my hands. What do I use it for now? So now we see the next line. Bhava sukhe doshonu sandhiyatam. So the same person who felt earlier that this world has so much joy, that same person will come to see the fallacies in that joy, the problems in that joy, the hollowness, illusion in that joy. And when I say illusion, don't jump straight away to Maya, just still from an experiential standpoint. Is the world giving me the sukha that I thought it was giving? Because that's what I'm after at the end of the day. Joy is what I seek. Even in one of the commentaries, Puja Gurudev says, even a worm crawling through dirt is looking for happiness. That's fundamental. So then is the world giving me what I want? Is it or is it not? This question of analysis, now I will take my powerful intellect and start asking questions. Bhava sukhe. Why should I not pursue worldly pleasures? Because there's 3 things that come about from it, and we'll expand on this again a little bit later. Because 1, it has a certain defect within it. I need to come to figure out what those defects are. 2, it will bind me more strongly. And how does that work? What does binding mean and how does that work? 3, it will only lead to more sorrows. A conclusion from questioning from step 1. So this analysis and application of the intellect is not just an intellectual appreciation. I know we applied our intellect, but really it's a conviction. There is no sukha in this world right now, and I truly have come to believe it because I've done my study. I've messed around with it. I've studied it really well. There really is nothing to be found there. That's a kind of conviction we have to come to, not just a shastra say there is no sukha in this world, therefore I will believe. That is a conviction. So, what do we mean? Now let's look at the word meanings of that particular phrase. Bhava sukhe. Let's first look at bhava. Bhava means samsara. Samsara means the world of transmigration. This is a classic translation that Puja Gurudev gives in his commentary. World of transmigration. So what do you mean by transmigration? Seems like where does that word come from? What do you mean, in under what context? So bhava, the root word for bhava is bhu. That means to be. That's the root verb of that word. Bhava means to be, becoming. Couldn't use be twice. Becoming. Bhava means becoming. If something has to go from one state and become something else, becoming implies change. Things have to constantly change one after the other, and that is the nature of samsara. Transmigration equals change. Synonyms. So when we say bhava, it means samsara. This quality of samsara, it is a constant change. It keeps on transforming. What kind of transformation? Bhava sukha. Sukha here means a worldly pleasure. So it keeps on transforming. What seems to be joyful, only the next moment seems to be a pain. It changes. And we'll take an example. Let's say that you had a friend, a long ago friend, a reunion almost of sorts. They come knocking on your door. What is your experience at that moment? Oh my gosh, I haven't seen you in for so long. Please come in. Tell me everything that's going on. And therefore you enjoy food, you laugh, you talk about things, and you keep talking and sharing each other's lives and keep talking. Now they've been with you for about a day, then it becomes a week, then it becomes 2 months, and they're still not leaving. What started off as a joyful reunion, if it continues to stick around for a long period of time, at some point, doesn't that sukha break? That experience is no longer the same. So even those relationships that can start off really well, if that object continues to remain without changing, it tends towards sorrow. Any object you take, and when I say object, not only things, but take people, take circumstances, any mode of experience, and just watch it over time. And how has that experience changed? Yes, there was joy in the beginning. Yes, it continued for a while. But there's always some point when I go past it, it changes into sorrow. So, Puja Gurudev, when he translates the word samsara vyavahara, he always has these coined phrases that are really powerful. He says it's the realm of change, or the Einsteinian realm of time, space, and causation. Reminds me of Einstein world is theory of relativity. Everything is relative, depends on how you look at it. Nothing is objectively it. Meaning, if I say that this object is happiness, that's a false statement. It's all relative. And it's all dependent on time. It all depends on the space and context it occurred in. It depends on what caused it and what are the effects. There's so many dependencies. So where is the reality and the stability within samsara? So in this kind of world, we have to keep reflecting on the doshas. Bhava sukhe dosho anusandhiyatam. Dosha means faults or fallacies or problems, errors, in that manner context of this word, dosha. So one of the best lines I heard in this description was, let not the mask of pleasure hide the depths of pain. Let not the mask of pleasure hide the depths of pain. So when we say, look at the doshas of sukha, there are a couple lists, and there's 3 things that we can look at in terms of looking at the fallacies, and I'll generally expand into 5 points, and the source of that comes from Panchadashi. It takes on this topic from there as well. So when it comes to doshas, a sukha, before I get into this, I have one other definition that I need to expand on that will make sense as we apply it. What is the difference between bhava sukha versus ananda? These two words get interchanged out of context. When we say ananda, quickest translation is bliss. And bliss is often associated with or termed with Brahman, that paramatmic state. Sukha, especially in this case, vyavahara, samsara, sukha. Synonyms, all there. What's the difference between the two? One is a dependent joy. The other one is an independent joy. Two very important adjectives we need to associate. So when I say sukha, samsaric sukha, that is a dependent joy. Dependent on what? Why does that word come up? Let's take a look at the mechanics of experience right now. As we are this individual in the world of Jagat, how does experience come about? And I'm pulling this from Self-Unfoldment, so if you've read this line, you might recognize it. Puja Gurudev gives the example. Meera is an individual. She received a letter containing news about her father's sickness. So that's a scenario. Meera is the subject. The object is the letter containing bad news. Now, there has to be a connection between the two. If Meera doesn't read the letter, no experience has happened. But Meera has to read the letter in order to see that scenario. Then what does she experience? Sorrow. Her father is sick. Therefore, she goes through the experience. You need a subject, you need a verb, and you have an object. Now, the experience isn't always the same. If I changed out the subject and put someone else there and they received Meera's father's sick letter, would they have the same experience? No. Because Meera, in her mind, has a set of filters that determine if the object is giving her a certain experience. Meera will feel sad when she reads the letter, whereas Vishnu, when he reads that letter, he's not going to feel sad because that father is not associated with him. So the individual with their vasana, I call it the filter, plus the interaction with the object, then gives a certain experience. Sorry, this is like rudimentary. It's kind of basic and in parts. But when I say that I experience happiness, what has to line up? The experiencer with his likes, plus the interaction, plus the object. All of it put together then gives me the experience of sukha. This is dependent sukha. Dependent on 4 different factors. If any one of them is missing or any of them is mismatched, I don't have sukha. That is vyavaharik sukha. Samsaric sukha, dependent sukha. Now on the flip side, now we're changing context. This is now Paramatma that we are speaking of, that ultimate Brahman, ekam advayam, one without a second. Meaning there is no other, there is no distinctions, there is no separation. So I kind of think about it like in a math class, if you draw a plane and you draw a line in the middle, then you have part A and part B. That line is what cuts 1 into 2. B limits A limits B, right? When we say ekam advayam, I remove the line, there is no distinction, there's only one entity. There cannot be 2. So in that case, if there's only one entity, who is the subject? The self. Who is the filter? The self. Who is the verb? The self. Who is the object? The self. And I can't even say that there are 4 selves. It's all one and the same. What experience? Where experience? Of what? Of what? Nothing. It's all just one. It is experience itself. It is bliss itself. It is independent of subject, object, or verb. There is no subject, object, or verb. It is happiness in its principle as itself. So, 2 different kinds. When we say dependent joy, we're talking about vyavahara. When we say ananda, we're talking about independent joy. So samsara is dependent on time, place, context, the Einsteinian world of time, space, and causation. So again, there's a new layer and depth to Puja Gurudev's definition here. This limiting dependent sukha has so many doshas in it. So many doshas. We have to apply our intellect and figure out what that is. So the first thing we have to look for is that sukha is not trustworthy. I cannot put all my eggs in one basket. I can't put all of my mind into that specific object, person, or circumstances. Things change. I cannot trust it to last forever. Let's take, for example, relationships. How much of it can I invest into it, and is it worth it? This is a dangerous question to ask. Does that mean I'm going to start uprooting all of my relationships? I found a dosha in all relationships, therefore I shall never have any relationship whatsoever. I hate everybody. That's again just like chapter 1 Arjuna, thinking that we can run away from life. Instead, the advice when it comes to relationship is given, love everyone. Sarvam priyam. Love everyone, but with a sense of detachment. Love with detachment. And that, we should be scratching our brain. What do you mean? How do I love with detachment? It seems to contradict each other, but in fact, one amplifies the other. How? I take an example of a child who is being taken care of by a mother versus a guru. Take that as an example of comparison between love and detachment. With the mother, of course, she loves the child. She will do everything to take, the mother ferocity is a force to be reckoned with, right? When anybody comes to harm that child, don't mess with mom. She loves that child and she will care for that child. And even a guru is loving to that shishya. Come what may, Swamiji, I have a question about this. Swamiji, this is going wrong in my life. Swamiji, I need help. I need advice. We come running to at least a trusted guru that we have come to develop a good relationship. We also go to a guru for advice. Both are ready to serve and give. But the element of detachment is there in a guru versus a mom. Mothers have a harder time with that detachment aspect. When does this come to a testing point when it challenges mothers? When the child has to go off to college and live on their own. In that moment, we want to protect the child. No, this is a heart-wrenching moment that they're leaving my home. I can't directly take care of my child anymore. I will always be there for them, but there's that sense of pain that comes when there's a separation from the child and the mother. Or, another way to think about it, how many times do we want to protect our children from suffering? We don't want them to suffer. Our reflex is to be protective over them. Let them not experience pain. However, on the other hand, a guru who is objective about the student's evolution realizes sometimes I need to dump them in the deep end, let them struggle a little bit, let them gain that experience, and then help lift them up when they're struggling. Wouldn't a mother have a harder time doing that than a guru? Subtle difference. Both love that student. Both want their evolution, benefit, growth. Everything is there. But because of the strong connection between a mother and a child, the attachment will be there more quickly versus a guru and a shishya. So in that case, sometimes, because of the mother's attachment, may hinder the child's evolution unless it's addressed and worked on. And the mother eventually, very quickly will realize, I'm getting in the way of the child's evolution. Let me step aside and I'll be a good mother when I do, at the right time, in the right place, in the right context. Whereas a guru will automatically have that because he's not it's not a mother-parent-child relationship. It's a little bit more distant, so a level of detachment can be there. Detachment allows objectivity. Attachment ruins it and becomes very biased in approach. So, when the advice is given, love everyone, but in a detached way. Love no matter what, whoever it may be, even thy enemy, love. But have that detachment so that we may properly use our intellect in the appropriate manner and be able to deal with the relationship as it should be. So, love, be kind, but never take any relationship to heart, meaning don't have an attachment to it, that you have a grip hold of that relationship. I have to have it this way. I have to have it in a certain way. That is where problems arise. So, this advice is not immediate or easy, but it will come with evolution of understanding and experience. A second one is, every pleasure takes away a bit of energy. Excuse me? Are you sure? You mean pleasure takes away energy? Man, when I'm working 80 hours a week for 2 years, 3 years, I want a break. I want vacation. So I will budget out like 3 weeks or so, take that amazing cruise down to the Caribbean or the West Indies or go to Alaska and just unleash, where I will eat all the food I want, spend all the money I want, visit all the places, just enjoy, and be entertained. What happens when you come back? Do we not drag our suitcase back into our house? Oh, I have to put back my laundry, I'm so tired. I thought vacations were to take a break and to feel rejuvenated. Why is it that the end of vacation, I'm more tired than when I started? I need a break after my break. So, this is a well-studied phenomenon that the Shastras tell us. When we are unfiltered, undisciplined, and completely swept away by sensual, meaning senses, all 5 sense pleasures, and we're swept away by it, it decays our very energies. We grow old through that. Have we ever seen like those that are like extreme sadhakas who have done their sadhana and tapas? They seem to have more energy than those that are self-indulgent. There's a source again there. Conservation of energy through the leaking of the senses. These are principles that will come up in the Shastra. So it's a well-studied phenomenon. The when we are attached to pleasure, a bit of us gets lost every single time. Detachment leads to refreshment. So for example, the body may crave sweets and there's nothing wrong with it. Take some paisam, take a little bit of ice cream. But if it's not required, and the intellect is good at telling us when it's required, when it's not, and we don't listen to it, the mind starts speaking up. Yeah, but I would really love it though. Can I please? Like, the intellect and mind talk to each other like parent and child. Don't do it. But come on, don't do it. Please. There's our own internal dialogue in between. And the tongue says, I can even have more. I can do it. I can taste all of it. Keep coming. So between the intellect, mind, and the body, there is a constant feud between these 3. But let the intellect win out. Intellect is the one that is the source of objectivity when we let it be. So then, such a pleasure drains me away. Let me keep that in mind. Every pleasure we are attached to destroys parts of ourselves. It chips away, it wears away. It's a slow degradation. I'm reminded of like a sandpaper, right? Slowly it wears away at that stone until there's nothing left. That is what growing old is part of. So then, the last point we want to see when it comes to the dosha of sukha is time. Time. How many pleasures can we indulge in? How many of them are there out in the world? Infinite. How much time do I have to indulge in them all? Not that much. I saw a very interesting depiction of this. Someone on a piece of paper said, okay, if we live an average of 90 years, he drew a circle for the number of weeks that are in 90 years. And he wrote a little chart on the board. There was like a grid of little circles. Each circle represented 1 week. And he said, a third of it goes away from sleeping. Another third for just the mechanics of eating, washing, and other nonsense that we do. Take another like one fourth or something of entertainment, scrolling, doom scrolling, whatever. How much time is actually left for productive use? Suddenly the number of weeks have dwindled down to like 2 rows in a line of like 90 years. Suddenly we should be panicked. Man, I better make use of the little time I actually have left. So how much time do I have, and how many pleasures do I want to indulge in? Is it worth it? Is it worth my time? Is it worth my life? So Nachiketa is a great example of this very dialogue. It comes in Kathopanishad, where he criticized his father for the yajna that he was performing. That which you were supposed to give as the best of your best, you're giving these old cows that are hardly standing on their feet. 1 blade of grass is all they can eat. You're giving such a thing. So his father got upset with him and said, leave me alone, stop criticizing, go talk to Yamrajji or something. I think it's just a style of like criticism back in that age. So Nachiketa, in his pure innocence, said, fine, I'll go talk to Yamrajji. And somehow he reached Yamloka, and Yamrajji was a little bit busy, he wasn't home. And so he stayed there for 3 days and 3 nights. Atithi Devo Bhava. A guest is revered as Bhagwan himself. So Yamrajji, also known as Dharmaraja, comes running to Nachiketa saying, you, Bhagwan, I've unattended for 3 days and 3 nights. Please let me offer my prayaschitta karma and offer you 3 boons of any of your choosing. What does Nachiketa ji asks? Atma Jnana. Nothing less than self-realization, please. Yamrajji said, you're just 5 or 6. What do you know about Atma Jnana? Instead, you're young, you have a full life ahead of you. In fact, let me give you the best of the best. I will bless you with long life, far longer than your ordinary life. In fact, I'll give long life to your next 7 generations. Not only that, I will give you the best kingdom, better than Ayodhya itself, the Ayodhya. That kingdom which had no conflict, I'll give you something even better than that. Okay, forget Bhuloka, that's the middle world. I'll give you Swarga itself, all the enjoyments, all the pleasures that's possible, give you the equipment to enjoy it even further than a human body. I will give you all of this. This is only 1 boon. He had 2 more left after this. What did Nachiketa say? No, thank you. Why? Because he had seen the dosha of sensual pleasure in its completeness. He said, look, you give me long life, you are Yamarajji. I still have an appointment with you at the end of those lives. You tell me that I can go to Swarga and enjoy, even my senses will come to age at some point. I will lose my energy in these sensual enjoyments. No, thank you. Bhava sukhe dosho anu